Hey kids, sorry, Dad spent all the money on this big
that's
building
right.
over here, but I'll let you run around in it.
Dad did not spend the money. Dad invested the Christmas money.
Right.
Welcome into the Get Invested podcast, a podcast about all things real estate and real estate investing, brought to you by Capital Velocity Investments and a part of the Matthias Talks Investing Substack.
Hey everybody, welcome into another edition of the Get Invested podcast with your host. I'm Jordan Stone.
I'm Matthias Wilson.
And we're both excited to be here and talk all things investing, real estate, and real estate investing. And the shenanigans are going to be aplenty because it is holiday season. And you can tell that it's deep in November by the fact that I'm wearing a short sleeve polo, right? Because obviously it should be 70 some degrees in November. I mean, maybe for you, Matthias.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm making a point to never give an indication as to what time of year it is with my attire because I wear the same thing all year long.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
You know, that brings up an interesting question to my mind and also just for you, sartorially. Do you have long sleeve polos? Or do you just throw on something over a short sleeve polo?
I usually just wear a jacket over a short sleeve polo. If it happens to have dropped below, 50, something like that.
Right. Oh, so you're saying, not to get stuck on this, but no jacket whatsoever until it gets into the 40s. You're rocking a polo.
Probably because I don't spend. I mean, I will choose not to be outside much, so I can walk to the car, from the office to the car, or wherever I'm trying to go, typically, and then inside it's usually warm enough.
Okay.
I'm a Florida man. I wear shorts all year long.
You're just like, I mean, I'm never outside enough for it to matter. I just go from my car to my jet to my office to my home.
No, I don't. I wish I had a jet. Maybe one day. No, more in terms of I will choose to not prolong my stay outside in those situations. Other times, I'm happy to be outside because I'm in Florida. It's lovely, but depending on time of year,
so
obviously.
Your stance is if it is even slightly cool, I would not call 40s cold. You're like, no, thank you. There's no way for it to be nice outside. You're like, I'm not going to stay out there in that.
If there's not a fire that I can kind of sit next to, then there's really no reason to continue.
Well, to bring this back to the holiday season, you're clearly going to break that rule this Sunday.
Sure. We'll be outside for a prolonged period. And it may be in the 40s.
Quite a while. Yeah.
I think it's supposed to warm up past that, though. We'll see. I'm
massively fingers crossed that it's just like an unseasonably warm day in Kansas City on Sunday. Because as much as I like the cold, being out in the cold for prolonged periods of time causes certain issues with my fingers. But I will ask you a little update. I don't know if anybody else cares, but was wondering about the logistics of that situation because I have been dealing with family logistics of just trying to figure out whose house we're going to for this holiday and who's staying, and the houses aren't big enough. Well, my parents' house is, but no, the kids' houses don't have like 3 guest bedrooms. So we're like, are we staying in an Airbnb? We do in a hotel. So it's been a lot of that. But you, of course, have a little bit more of an involved situation coming up. So how do we have the party bus lined up? I'm assuming it's a party bus.
Well, it's a party as soon as we get on. But yeah, we have a bus leaving from mom's house. Everybody's going to meet up at mom's house. And then we're going to get on the bus there, go to the game. Then the bus will take us back from the game to mom's house afterwards. So that's all, which removes everybody trying to get parking passes and then being scattered all over parking lots depending on when you show up. But there will be like 1 or 2 people I think that are going straight to the game and we'll meet up there, but almost all of us will be on the bus, which would be cool. We'll have more time together, 1, and 2, we can also like pass out because all the tickets will be on my phone and I can transfer them to people as we get there, and it can be like, hey, you guys we can organize that way because not all the seats are like contiguous right next to each other. Some of them are a couple rows back, some of them are whatever, we have a chunk here. They're all in the same general spot, but they're not all necessarily right next to each other. So we could be like, hey, this family can sit next to each other here, and then we'll put all these people here. We can talk through all that while we're on the bus.
want to start a little bit earlier than that. At least having like this sounds like it's not as serious as a seating chart for a wedding reception, but I can foresee a situation where someone is a little, I don't want to say upset, but like, why am I here rather than here? kind of situation. And it may be me. I'm just not going to put it out there. It may be me. I don't know.
Well, the reality is that we're going to have our chunk of seats. We'll just have people go stand in those seats, and then we'll be meandering around throughout the game, I'm sure. Hey, I'm going to go talk to this guy for a bit. Hey, scoot down, vacate, move around, whatever. I foresee that.
I'm sure the other attendees will love all of this meandering around, that the, for lack of a better term, Wilson clan will be executed.
Hey, we'll all be wearing red, so they're going to be fine with it. I promise.
Well, I mean,
we'll see.
If you do understand, if I end up at like one of the rows that's higher up than most people, including you will get things thrown at you. That will happen 100%. Just want to put that out there.
I'll keep that in mind, I guess.
Not out of anger, just mischief and joy. Well, being that it is the holiday season, and which means light and joy and love, but also incredibly busy schedules.
Oh yeah.
Maybe we should just jump in here. It is a holiday theme, I suppose. This is like the Die Hard. This is like the Die Hard version of a holiday movie.
I've seen already this year, for the record.
The holiday is in the background.
It's
we're going to be talking. Yeah, exactly. There's turkeys and I don't know, what are the decorations for gourds, I guess, cornucopias.
So many gourds. Yeah.
In the background that you can see as we have this discussion. Butternut squash. That's my jam. Getting me off topic, but we're going to talk about idea, act, possibility, strategy of buying and selling commercial properties during the holidays. You know what, Matthias? I got to say, this is one of those where normally I know exactly kind of like where we're going to go. And sometimes, even some of my stuff that I ask is staged, it's not organic. Spoiler alert, guys. But this time, I really am like, what are we talking about? Let's go.
All right. Yeah. Well, yeah. So I figured we'd talk a little bit about buying first, and then we'll talk about selling. Everything's going to be kind of married up because obviously for any transaction to take place, there have to be both a buyer and a seller. But really Jen talks to people about this a lot as well. As a real estate agent, when they ask like, hey, when should we list? When's the best time of year to list? When's the best time of year to buy? All this comes into play, but really it comes out, what it all boils down to is competition. Is when you want there to be lots of competition, do it that time of year when everybody's doing the same thing. And when you want there to be less competition, do it at a time of year when fewer people are doing it, right? So you have less people to fight with. So on the buying side, the holidays is a great time to buy. The holidays is almost always the best time to buy because it's the hardest to deal with in terms of, one, nobody's looking at their emails. Everybody's buying Christmas presents and focused on travel and a family and all that stuff. Two, everybody's closed. All the professional agencies, the title companies and banks and whatnot are closed higher percentage of the time. So things take longer. They're tougher, but there's ways around. So basically, if you're willing to put up with all the potential headaches of buying during the holidays, that's when you're going to get the best deal, in my opinion. Oftentimes, and here's how it plays more into it, is oftentimes people know this and they don't want to list during the holidays because they assume nobody's going to be buying, or not the most amount of people are going to be buying during the holidays. So typically what you're going to run into if you're a buyer during the holidays is that you'll find that whatever's out on the market during the holidays has been out there a while. Meaning they've been sitting there for a hot minute. They didn't sell when they wanted to. And now they're staring at the end of the year going, oh my gosh, I thought we were going to sell it by now. So
no new listings. Okay.
Right. Very few new listings. So it's going to be aged on the market. Almost everything you see. Sometimes out of necessity, people list at that time, but it's abnormal for that to happen. So by its nature, there's going to be a lower level of new listings during this time, from a week before Thanksgiving until after New Year's, basically. That's what we're defining as the holidays, or at least what I'm defining as the holidays, if that makes sense. So in my opinion, and what we could talk about some ways to kind of hedge your bets and ways to deal with some of the complications of buying the holidays. But that's generally, if you're looking to find a deal and some motivated sellers, the holidays is a good time to do it.
I think that's how most people would define the holiday season until after New Year's. So no new listings. That's really the only thing I took from that. I'm sorry. I think I missed some stuff.
No, well, so in order, there's two ways to get a deal, right? Is to be the only guy looking, and or to find a very motivated seller, right? So that was kind of my point, is that your holiday sellers are by definition almost going to be more motivated than when they first listed their property, because they have sat through, chances are they listed it in August or September going, hey, we'll usually before that, even, like, depending on what type of property specifically it is, but you want to try to get like the real buying season is like from, I don't know, May to September, we'll call it, especially for like housing type stuff, because that's when people can move, generally those ranges, or when people prefer to move. But so you're not fighting a bunch of other buyers, because very few people are out during the holidays, making offers on properties and touring properties and whatnot. But also your seller, like I said, he was hoping to sell this year. He listed, he's been sitting 100 days, 150 days, on the market. And so now he's ready. He's staring at the wall of, oh boy, I thought I was going to sell it this year. Now I got to start making tax planning for next year if we sell next year, which kind of brings me to the point of, it depends on what you're looking at, or what specifically the size and type of property you're buying. But we'll just assume apartments for our intents and purposes. If it's a smaller deal and you have the ability to close it before the end of the year, that could be a huge selling point. Because a lot of times when you're talking about commercial properties, the tax consequences of selling are going to be significant, one way or another. So basically, when you say, hey, I plan to sell this X property this year, you set up your whole year around expecting to get, capital gains or whatever it is from that, for sale, the proceeds of that sale. You set up your whole year around as best you can to make that the best tax advantage way that you can, in terms of maybe you did a bunch of outlays or locked in a bunch of losses so that you can offset some of the gains for the property, whatever. So what you don't necessarily want to do is kick the sale into the next year, and now all those gains you have to spend a whole nother year trying to set up for offsetting those capital gains. So tax planning can be a big deal. So if you walk up to a guy who is listed, let's say he listed in August, and I'm just making these numbers up, at $2 million to sell his property, and he had his whole plan, say, yeah, I'll probably settle, I'd be okay with 1.85. Well, that guy might be cool with 1.5 if you can close by December 31st. You know what I mean? If he's waited through the whole summer, didn't get it, for whatever reason, it didn't get under contract, didn't sell. Now, and all things being equal, let's say the property was worth whatever he was asking it for. He might be willing to take even more of a discount if you have the ability to close in a faster timeline by the end of the year. So that's kind of what the holidays brings you. Is that's like your last chance to make some moves, as it were.
Well, that actually, that kind of I had a thought when you were first talking about this that does dovetail into this that you were just talking about, which is I can see the motivation to sell by the end of the year. But if we're talking about this being during the holidays, and even if we got, we'll say holidays extended, the long holiday.
Sure.
And you're like, okay, let's start at Veterans Day. That's a pretty tight window to get something like this closed, especially since you're going to have a lot of banks and this, that, and the other that you need being closed multiple days through this period, even perhaps maybe like the entire last week of December. So that seems to me, having done this now 3 times, I guess. That's not it can make for some squirrely times trying to get it closed there at the end.
The key being, obviously, if you made an offer at Thanksgiving and wanted to close by the end of the year and you're getting a big discount, we're talking cash. We're not talking lender. We're talking cash, which and that could be, maybe you refinance immediately. There's all sorts of ways you can do this. But if you have the ability, that's why I said if you have the ability to close and maybe you don't, but in the scenario where you can close by the end of the year and you made an offer in November, chances are it's cash. Maybe not necessarily if it was early November. but you can close by the end. It's a good 45, 60-day close. That's not too bad with the holidays in there. Can be done. I've seen it done, but the incentive it may be there for the seller to drop his price, I guess. So it's a way to get a deal during the holidays, from what I've seen. On the other side, though, if you may still be able to get a deal even if you can't close by the end of the year, just because the guy's tired of messing with it. Like I said, that it's almost guaranteed that it's been sitting on the market for a while, and chances are he's had some offers, maybe even got under contract, fell out of contract. You never know. I mean, if he's priced generally right, he almost undoubtedly got offers. And so he's probably tired of messing with it. And if you just say, hey, I have a track record of closing or whatever as a buyer, you say, hey, this is, I like your property. I want your property. Here's an offer that's generally closed, probably less than what he was wanting to get, but he may legitimately still take it, in order to stop having to worry about it. Yes, it won't be, what he wanted before the end of the year, in a scenario where it just wasn't possible to get it done, or you couldn't use cash or whatever. But there's a bunch of ways to kind of work towards a discount on the buyer's behalf over the holidays.
Well, it seems to me that, and I was just reflecting back on times where things haven't come to fruition in the timeline we were hoping, that in this scenario, the seller might be more motivated to work through that. Like, so say you try to get it closed by the end of the year, it doesn't work. They're trying to get rid of it. They don't want to like start over. They're be more than willing maybe to just kind of extend, even if it means change the terms or, whatever the case may be. They may be more amenable to various restructurings, as it were.
Yeah, I mean, that's generally the case for a property that's, theoretically been on the market for a while. Like, the longer it goes, the less likely you are to get the price you want for it. That's just the nature of doing, buying, selling properties. So he's like, look, we got this price. If it comes off, people find out what it's under contract, what it was under contract for, and for whatever reason we call it off, they couldn't close on time. One, I'm definitely not closing on time with another buyer. Two, chances I get even up to this price are lower moving forward. So the longer, that's not necessarily due to the holidays, but the longer a seller has his property on the market, the more likely he is to accept extensions and things like that if for whatever reason the lenders are slow or whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, if they are a rational actor, I will just have to put that out there because
sure,
we definitely tried the last time we were buying to try to buy during the holidays. No, both CVI and Rachel and I personally, and there are people who had things sitting on the market for a long time who were not seeming to like, I don't know, pick your metaphor, reading the tarot cards, I don't know, assessing the situation, whatever you want it to be.
I mean, you're always going to have those people, but those people don't necessarily need to sell, and they weren't particularly motivated in the first place. So chances are those people are just hard to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly, I don't want anybody to be in a situation where they need to sell their house immediately. That's usually not a great situation, but it's a little bit different if it's a commercial property.
And they bought a new house and
we did have one of those situations where we just weren't willing to close in the amount of time that they wanted because they had done that, and they had, and then their, it fell through, not their purchase, but their original sale.
Yeah.
And so they were like,
yep, that happens.
Yeah.
And it puts at risk their next house or whatever. So, or even they're just carrying a second mortgage for a long time, and that's no fun.
Yeah. I don't know which, this is a lot of topic, but which would be like worse / more irresponsible. Irresponsible sounds harsh. That's not what I mean, but like being able to carry close on the house and carry the mortgage seems like you're in a stronger position than if you're like, no, I have to have the money from this one to get this one, which is what they were in. They were in that situation where they needed that for this. There was no go ahead and buy it situation. Anyway, so all that being said, we've talked about the buying side. What particular, I don't know, what thoughts, aspects do you have thinking about it from the other side?
So from the selling side,
you don't want to be that motivated seller, really.
That's pretty much it. It's like it's. I would say if I were to sum up, I would say holidays is a great time to buy for a buyer. Great time to get a good lock in a good purchase price during the holidays, and maybe you just buy. If you're buying, you say, "Hey, we'll actually set this as a 90-day transaction, like a long transaction, but we get our price locked in during the holidays when nobody else is making offers." Then you could basically tell the seller, like, "Hey, I know you don't really want to mess with this over the holidays. Enjoy your Christmas. We'll close in, beginning of February, and we'll just close in. So go enjoy your time. You have the peace of mind knowing you're under contract. But we went ahead and while you were stressed out about it before Christmas, we went ahead and made the low ball, not necessarily low ball, but we got a discount on the price because we were making offers and nobody else was at the end of a long period. You know what I mean? So there's a bunch of different ways to take advantage of the buying situation. But for all of those same reasons, it's a very tough time to be a seller.
I would think that, on one last note on that, do you think it makes a seller more likely to do seller financing? Because is there a way in which they could technically close for the 1 year, but then all the money doesn't come until later, but it's no longer their tax liability?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point. I hadn't really thought about that, but it does make sense because you could if there's no lender involved, or if the seller is the lender, then you could close a lot faster without having to have the. That's a great point. I mean,
all of the
sure,
cash.
that might be a perfect time to ask for seller financing, because he could get closer to his price. You can get a better loan term than you were going to get if you had to go through Fannie Mae or whatever, and we could close by the end of the year. He could. There's ways to. I mean, your CPA is some of the gain is going to be due that year. Other parts of the gain is going to be due, and depending on the terms of the financing and whatnot. But yeah, that's great. That is a great call. I hadn't thought of that, but that's good. We'll put that in.
I would say that's what I'm here for, but it's really not what I'm here for. That's just bonus. That's just added butter right there.
There you go.
It does seem though that, I mean, there's clearly a moment where I know we want to avoid taxes. I know that is like the big thing, but at some point, if you're bringing the sale down to a point where he's like, well, I'm not paying that much in taxes. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's got to be some moment where it's like, wait a second, I'll just deal with.
I'm doing all this for taxes. Yeah, I mean, it's funny because a lot of people get caught up, and there's been a lot of people who do what we do talk about this before too. Is that it's kind of like letting the tail wag the dog. It's like, hey, our overall operational choices are being driven by the potential taxes of each, and it's like, that's not. Yes, you should take taxes and potential taxes into account in your decision making, but do not let the, forcing yourself into a 1031, for instance, when it might just make sense to sell, because if you're a 1031, you put all sorts of time and size constraints on the next property, and a lot of people end up buying unsuccessful investments as 1031s because they were so worried about paying the taxes, where had they just bought it, sold it normally, and then bought the next property normally, at a size, and it doesn't have to fit into the little box, and find it at the right time, you can save yourself. You could have two successful investments, and yes, you're going to pay some tax, but you moved on, and you only made successful investments. You're not tied to a poor investment for however long.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem that, at least in the rhetoric that I hear sometimes, and I'm not saying anybody in particular, just like, everything that people talk about all the time, it does seem that sometimes we're forgetting the actual goal. The goal is not to not pay taxes. That's not the goal. That might be part of the calculation.
Pay lower taxes, as lower taxes as possible.
Sure. But yeah, that's not the actual end goal of the project, as it were.
Yeah.
But so I guess on the seller side, it's basically don't want to be that guy.
Yeah. I mean, you would never on
if
purpose.
If you were to sell, what if you had let's just talk generally. You've got a property on the market. It's coming to that point. Someone gives you an offer. How do you think you would go forward in that situation as a seller? What's the smart play?
Well, I mean, you just have to understand all these market dynamics are against you. So chances of finding more competition to get buyers into a bidding war is very low. Chances of them asking for concessions is pretty high. And depending on if you wanted to close by the end of the year or not, you've got all those same things that you may have to, in order to get the buyer to close by the end of the year, you may may have to lower your price or do seller financing or whatever. Maybe seller financing is something that you could push if you're at the end of the year. It's like, hey, with a buyer who maybe there's some buyers sniffing around and have been for a while, but they've never quite bitten. You can throw something at them and say, hey, we could do seller financing and, help keep all the terms positive on your side, but it removes the lender. We can close quickly, and you have a lot more control at that point as the lender over how over how quickly all the paperwork gets done. So that's a way.
And I guess you are, because you are the one dictating due diligence, right? Like all the things that have to be checked off to lend the money, right?
Well, you're not. I mean, they're going to do their own due diligence. That's the buyer.
Well, I'm just thinking about the things that the bank requires. You're the one now requiring those standards,
or not requiring them because it's your property and you know the property. So
exactly.
You don't have to order all these extra inspections because you've been operating the property for X amount of years. It's very true. Basically, you just have to satisfy the buyer and not the buyer's lender. Where typical transaction, you have to satisfy both of them.
Right. So, I mean, you're satisfying. Well, you are satisfied. It's easy to satisfy the buyer's lender.
Exactly. It's me.
Yeah. Now, I mean, so I think this might be an interesting point to kind of like wrap it up. I know we've gone a little bit, I guess, beyond the holidays, but since I brought up such a good point, when you have experience with this, and I'm going to just speak generally with seller financing, that process, as far as negotiations go and just in general, the transition, like how does that, I don't think we've ever actually talked about that. Like when you sell it, say like you sold it to them, right? Mm-hmm. But you're lending them the money. Are you still carrying the mortgage and they're paying off your mortgage, or how does that work?
So most traditional lenders would never allow that. They don't allow that.
Yeah.
So seller financing is tough to do because typically the buyer would have to bring enough to pay off the existing mortgage. Okay. Now, in a low leverage situation, like we have experienced whenever we've done seller financing, we're in a low leverage, meaning the property is worth a lot more than we owe on it. So there's a significant equity gap there. And that gives you the space to say, hey, as long as you bring X amount down, we can finance up to this amount. And at terms that are agreeable to both of us and go from there.
Right. So, I mean, it's in a sense, it's parallel to bringing a down payment, right? The down payment just happens to be however much you still owe as the seller. Okay. And then the rest is basically you are lending them the equity in the building.
Right.
At a certain rate of interest.
Mm-hmm.
And that interest, I guess, is negotiated. Is it negotiated based on what the market is actually dictating? I assume somewhat, but not necessarily totally.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to be tied to the market at all. It kind of goes, hey, what makes your numbers work? What makes my numbers work? It could be lower, it could be higher, depending on. I mean, if you're getting a higher price than you would cash, like if somebody bought all cash, for instance, let's say you're listed at $3 million and you're going to get your $3 million. They're bringing them, I don't know, $1.5 million to pay off your existing mortgage. There's a remaining $1.5 million of equity that you're going to loan them. And so you're seller financing $1.5 million. Let's say if they brought 2.5, you would have sold of cash. So typically what you're going to do is they're bringing you more money in the long run. So you give them a lower than market interest rate. And if they're bringing less money than they would have, then you give them a higher, it's riskier. So a higher than normal interest rate. Theoretically, like it depends on which advantages go. The higher interest rate obviously goes to the lender. The advantage goes to the lender. But if you're bringing more money down and less leverage, then you would give the buyer the lower interest rate as an incentive to get them to bring that more money.
Right.
So
and then of course
those are all. And you can go ahead.
I was just saying, in the scenario that we're talking about, if we remember, go back to like as the seller who wants to get this done. There's going to be a number of reasons why you might offer a lower one, and including like the amount that they bring or what have you. But
absolutely,
and then if you give them a lower rate, you can say this is in the spirit of the holidays, and you can feel good. Sure. I don't know. And then on the flip side, if you buy one, you can say, "Honey, I bought us an apartment complex for Christmas! Hooray!"
I've done that before,
and
from Afghanistan.
You can just say, "Hey, kids, sorry, Dad spent all the money on this big building over here, but I'll let you run around in it.
Dad did not
Maybe.
spend the money. Dad invested the Christmas money.
Right. Dad invested the money. Exactly. No money was spent. Money was invested. All right. Well, I think it seems like that's a good spot to wrap this up. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Well, as always, guys, we appreciate you hanging out and listening to us. And if you have any comments, questions, thoughts, points, assertions, missives, any of those that rants, we'll take them all. Let us know. You can comment on the bottom of this on Substack, on YouTube. Spotify allows comments now. I find that strange, but you can DM us on LinkedIn. Yeah. Email us, capitalvelocityinvestments.com. We're out there. Please get in touch if you so desire. We'd love to hear from you. Otherwise, we really appreciate you hanging out, and we hope you come back next time for another edition of the Get Invested podcast.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving.